Greetings, my fellow War of the Visions players. As you may have seen, we're getting the Glacial raid this week, and a lot of people are saying that it's going to be a fairly simple raid. If you have slash units, you should be able to have no problem with this, but just having slash units won't be enough. So I kind of wanted to talk about how you can prepare yourself for raids, and even if you're a new player, how you can prepare yourself for future raids, even if you don't necessarily do good on this one. So, the next picture we have here, this is my results from the last raid. I was basically able to get plenty of the first recipe, and I also got a bunch of the second recipe, which is the previous raid's recipes. And I still had plenty left over to buy everything else, and then some. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that when I started playing the game, I was doing terribly in raids. I didn't even really know how to do raids. I think I got like my first raid to like level 20 something. And I was like, wow, I'm doing so well at this raid. But over time, I sort of realized like people were saying, oh, you're supposed to get the +5 of the item and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of just said to myself, man, like, don't worry about getting the +5 of the item, because what's going to happen is, you're going to be able to get like a +2, +3, and the raid is going to sort of rerun in the future, and that's when you can kind of finish the items basically. So what I've noticed over time is it took me a while to start really finishing, first of all, getting the raid to level 100, and then second of all, even finishing the items themselves. They were very difficult for me to do, and it wasn't really until like maybe 2 or 3 raids ago that I was really feeling it and really doing well on these raids. So this last raid though, I realized like once you have your account is strong enough, you're gonna be able to hopefully full auto the raid. Even if you don't full auto, you should be able to single shot it, like one shot the raid. And since I was able to full auto the raid, I was able to get a ton of the stuff here, so as I said. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're not able to beat the raid, don't really worry, don't really focus too much on this particular raid. It doesn't really matter the strategies you use or whatever. You can definitely go into multi and you can finish the raid, but try to focus on just strengthening your account and getting to a point where you can get raids done like fairly easily. So with that being said, what I wanted to do is sort of go over some units that are going to be probably good to have for raids. If you have some of these units, you should just pick some of your favorite ones and just sort of start working towards building them up. So these are kind of the units that I'm sort of thinking about here. And I'm using the tier maker, but this isn't really designed to be a tier or anything. I just use that to kind of organize and to be able to, drag the faces around. So in really no particular order, what I did was I did unlimited at the top and then limited at the bottom. And then I sorted each row by either defense down or other down. I'll get to that in a second. So let's start with our first unit here. It's Ruin Stern. So Ruin Stern, he has the ability, or Bling Stern if you will, the ability to, he's got a skill called Hazard Crusher. So what that attack does is not only does it do damage, but it also lowers the opponent's defense. So in a raid, how that's going to help you is that you're going to put a debuff on the raid boss. So with that means everyone gets the benefit from that debuff. So it's a defense down, so that means everyone on your team is going to be hitting harder. As opposed to if you did an attack up on yourself, only that unit or only the units in like right next to that unit are the ones that are going to benefit. So it's probably better to do a defense down. And then on top of that, if you have anything like steal time or if you slow down their time, that defense down is going to last a lot longer on the opponent, on the raid boss, because it's going to take a lot longer for their turn to come, and it's usually like a 3-turn countdown. So that's why I think it's better to do the defense down. So going back to Stern, Stern has a defense down on his attack called Hazard Crusher. So if you can get him to do that at the beginning of the match, then the raid boss's defense is going to be lower, and then for the entire match, or at least until the effect ends, you're going to be able to do more damage. In that case, when it ends, Stern is going to be able to just reuse the skill and just sort of reset it. So Rune Stern is the first one that you can consider. Obviously he's double cost, and obviously he's a pretty good one. So, but he's definitely one of the ones that you can consider in terms of using him, working on him to get better at raiding. So our next unit here is Venera. Venera also has a defense down in the form of Armor Cleaver, and she also has another attack, which is, I think it's called, I don't really remember what it's called, but it's some backstab something or other, where that also lowers the defense. And I'm just gonna go through each person. Oldoa, she has it under her limit break. That also gives a defense down. And make sure, the problem with the limit break is you can only use it once. Actually, two problems. You could only use it once, and that it's a much higher AP cost. So it's a little bit harder with units like Oldoa, but she does have it as her limit break, and when you use her limit break, her limit burst, as soon as you use that, it's the same effect. Basically, if you can use it as soon as possible, you can benefit from the effect for longer in the raid. So the other thing is you have to make sure you max out the skill. So for limit breaks, you got to make sure you max it out, at least get it to 15, so that you can get the most defense down from the actual skill. So moving on to the next unit is Nivlu. Now Nivlu is more of a missile unit, so she's not going to be necessarily useful for this raid, but there are missile raids which she will be useful for. So what you want to do with her is her limit break. I forget what it's called, but it's a big AoE. It's basically like Barrage, except it also has defense down. So again, that's going to benefit you for the rest of the raid. And lastly, on this row for the defense down, we have Rain. So Rain's a little bit special. He's a magic slasher, but he still counts as a slasher. He has an attack called Undermine, which actually lowers attack, magic, defense, and spirit, or maybe attack or magic. I'm not sure if it does both of those, but since defense is part of that, he's definitely going to help you raid a little bit more. And Rain is actually a special kind of case because he's actually part of both of these tiers. So we're going to move him here. And just basically his limit burst also has a fire resistance down. So basically he's going to help his fire team members for the rest of the raid do more fire damage basically. And since this particular raid has weakness to fire, he's going to give the raid boss a bigger weakness to fire essentially, and that's going to be very helpful for fire teams, or even if you have one other fire slasher on the team, or even any fire unit, to be honest. Let's go back to the beginning with Gilgamesh here. Gilgamesh actually has Kotetsu, which is a slash down. So the slash down it operates on a different plane than defense down. So the good thing about that is that it stacks with Stern. Any of the top units, Stern being the first one there. It stacks with the defense down, so you can defense down and slash resistance down, and you can even do even more damage for your slashers and for your physical attackers. So the next one here is Stern. Stern's skill is, you need to have him at level 120. It's the last EX skill of his. I believe it's called Calamity Crusher or Calamity Break or something like that. What it does is the same thing as Gilgamesh. It lowers slash resistance. So again, you can stack that with the defense down abilities. So that's pretty much the same thing, just a different unit. For Yerma, it's a little bit different. What she has is unit resistance down. So what she does is she makes it so that single targeting attacks do more damage. And so the good thing about that is that also stacks with defense down, and that also stacks with slash resistance down. So you can technically do all three, and you can do even more damage. She is a slash unit, so that is very viable. But at this point, I think you really only need two, but it's good to have. She's kind of like a unlimited, non-double cost. Same thing with Stern. They're kind of like unlimited non-double cost, so you should be fine being able to build them up. The next unit here is Laswell. What he has is an Ice in Peril. I forget the name of the skill, but it's one of his skills. It's not his limit burst. For Yerma, it's actually her limit burst. So again, what I said before, you can only use it once per battle, but it still benefits you. But for Laswell, it's one of his skills, so you're going to be able to use it multiple times. What he does is the Ice in Peril, so any other ice unit is going to benefit, and is basically going to do more damage. And of course, again, the good part is that you can stack it with the defense down, you can stack it with the slash attack, and you can stack it with the unit resistance. So if you can get that to work out in terms of having, ice units and slash units, then that's going to make you do more damage. But like I said, in general, try to keep it to two at most. You really only need two. At that point, you're doing pretty good damage, so you won't have to worry about trying to stack more than 3 different types of debuffs at the same time. For Howlett, his limit burst is the one that has it. What he has is wind resistance down, so you can, again, it's like Laswell's, you can stack that with defense down, and you can combine it with units like Oldoa or other wind slashers. 2B is another one. And basically, these three, Laswell, Howlett, and Rain, are pretty much the same thing. They lower in an elemental resistance, and that can stack. I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure I say everything here. So going down to limited units, first one here is Titus. So if you were able to get Titus to level 120, his EX skill, Jack Shot, is going to be able to lower defense. So it's going to be the same as these guys up here, where defense operates on one level and then the other resistances down operate on another level. So Titus should be one that we all have, and hopefully most of you guys got him to 120. If not, then it's okay. There's other options. That's why I kind of put the unlimited units on top and then the limited units at the bottom. So you probably already know if you have these limited units, but the next person here is Agrius. She has full break, and what that does is similar to Rain's Undermine, where it lowers attack, defense, magic, and spirit. So the defense is probably what you want since she's a physical attacker. For Rain, it's different because he's a magic attacker, but you're probably going to use him with physical attackers since he's a slash unit. So it's good to have spirit and defense down. But for Agrius, you really only need a defense down. Next up is Orlando. He has a defense down skill called Crush Armor, I believe. And it's essentially the same as the other ones, except this one is just defense, unlike Agrius. So another unit, if you have him, I know he's like from the beginning of the game. So Arin's a little bit different here. You might have him since he's kind of recent. His defense down is on counter. So he has a counter named Counter, which is different from the other counters. But his is special because it has the defense down on it. It's a little bit different because it's not one of his skills. It's his counter. So technically you can use it an unlimited amount of times as much as the boss attacks you. But the one bad thing about it is that you have to have high brave, and it still has a chance of not going off. So he may not be the best, but he does have that as part of his kit. So that's really good. Next up is Delita. Again, he's limited. He's from FFT, so he's kind of an older unit. But Delita has an attack called Karma Blade. And Karma Blade, what it does is similar to Rain. So if you don't have Delita, you can use Rain, where it lowers the fire resistance and it benefits fire team members. And of course, it can stack with other defense downs from other units. Next up is the Christmas Ramada. Kristen Sharada her skill is on her limit burst. I believe it's called Holy Knight's Judgment. What she does is lower slash resistance, so she's the same as Gilgamesh or Stern. And like I said, that stacks with defense down and all the other different ones that are not slash resistance. Okay, so that's pretty much, those are the units that you should be able to use for this raid. And for future raids, I think there are going to be good units to kind of just have built up to like strengthen your account, as people say. And so the next row, what I'm talking about are magic users. Magic users aren't necessarily going to apply for this raid necessarily. They might actually work, but you want to use them for like a specific magic raid or a raid that doesn't resist magic. So first up is KelThaFunkee. KelThaFunkee is going to be the one that has magic resistance down. So what that does is it basically just makes all magic attacks. It's like the slash resistance, but it's for all magic attacks. That's going to cause magic attacks to do more damage. And that's part of her limit burst. So you only have one crack at it. So make sure you use it at the appropriate time with the appropriate timing. Next up is Medina. And again, this is her limit burst, Cosmo Plume. It actually has an ice resistance down. The stronger your limit burst is, the more resistance down it does, as I mentioned before. And that's going to help your ice units. So not only is it going to help, it's going to, combo with Laswell. It'll combo with Gilgamesh or Agrius. But to get the most benefit out of it, I guess you should probably team it with a magic user. So that would be either Valide or Shell. Next up, and last but not least, is Yuna. Yuna actually has a spirit down because she has Green Mage. She has a spirit down D Shell. So it's going to be a similar thing. The D Shell does stack with the ice resistance down from Medina or the magic resistance down from KelThaFunkee. So that all stacks together. And actually, I forgot to mention too, Medina, going back to Medina, she also has Green Mage and she also has D Shell. So that's going to be another good unit to have. And these are basically the UR units. So these are the UR units you want to work with. But you can look through the MR units and look through their kits. And a lot of them do have Green Mage, D Protect, D Shell. So that's going to be useful. There really isn't, like, that is really the difference between UR and MR, is that UR tend to have like really good like game-changing moves like that. MR not necessarily. Knights do have like power break and speed break and stuff like that, but there's really no defense break or spirit break on the normal knights or any really the physical units. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, somebody let me know in the comments. But generally, physical units don't have that, and it usually is for specialized units like Green Mage. So usually the magic units are the one that have that. So that's kind of just an overview of units that are going to be good for raids. Hopefully you guys can sort of take something away from that. And if your account is not that great, at least you have some sort of option in terms of, working towards something for future raids, even if you don't do good on this raid. And remember, guys, jump into the multi-rooms. People will let you in depending on your unit. People will ask for different things. Like, it may not necessarily be a fire slash. Maybe you have electric slash or, I don't know, like ice slash. Since we have ice and peril, the weakness doesn't matter as much. So hope you guys found that useful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy, and I'll talk to you later.